Paul, where's Sephai?
I had to make another one. Full of Sephai sweetness.
Aloha.
Hey everybody, I'm Paul.
I'm Josh.
And I'm Joe.
And we're Gassed Up Geeks. That's right, we have Joe here today. You may be wondering, we got Joe? Where's Sephai? Well, there's two reasons for that. One, we had to grow another Sephai, and he's not done. Secondly, today's episode is all about anime. I grew up watching Japanese cartoons, but we called it Japanimation back then. Grandizer, we called it Battle of the Planets, but it was really Gotchaman, but I didn't really get into it, and it's evolved very much since then. I know nothing. Josh, he knows quite a bit. Joe, he's our expert. That's what you do. You call in an expert.
Who you gonna call?
That phrase will never be usable again, will it?
No, we're not gonna.
So, all right. So, like I said, Joe's our expert. So, for once, I'm not going to be talking a whole lot, but gotta ask questions because, well, I never shut the hell up anyhow. We already know that. And it'll mainly be Joe and Josh filling this in. So, Joe, first of all, like I said, I grew up with something called Japanimation, which is what we call Japanese cartoons.
Right.
When did Japanimation become anime? How did that change?
Well, if we go back to the history of anime, it actually goes back to the early 1900s when animation, in fact, was just used as commercials or part of ads back in the theaters. Because before there were trailers, they just put in general ads and then the movie would play.
Off you go to the lobby.
Something like that.
Buy yourself some sushi.
Something like that, right? And it was just these 2-3 minute reels. The earliest, I think, was just about a rough sketch. Let's put it this way, it's like stick figures.
Oh.
The earliest was a 2-minute segment about samurai, like forging a new sword, testing it out, only to find out he's defeated.
Okay.
Right. So it was like that until 1923, and then there was this huge earthquake that happened. Lasted about 10 minutes, pretty much destroyed everything and leveled everything. So that was just basically the last remaining work of art from that era.
Okay, so to be clear, it was an earthquake, not Godzilla.
No.
Okay.
No.
Alright.
Well, if it was an earthquake, then, if it was Godzilla, then we'd be leveled and incinerated.
That's true. That's true, yeah.
Right.
Sorry, I had to do that.
Godzilla! Anyway, it kind of fast forward over to the 1940s when Japan was aspiring to take over the world, and they used anime as part of propaganda. So there was this anime called Momotaro Sea Eagles that basically glorified their Air Force and their Navy. That was up until 1945. 1948, where it was some of the earlier beginnings of the anime as we know and love now.
Gotcha.
Right? And it wasn't until 1958, on TV, that they started televising anime. And they started to do them as little, segments or series, as we now know.
Okay. When did it become like actual cartoons, like, we get today?
Around the 1960s.
Okay.
1963, to be precise. The very first known cartoon, at least by record, is Osamu Tezuka called it Tetsuwan Atom, better as Astro Boy.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember that one.
I mean, they had the basic sketch, like the steel hair, the round hands and round feet, but it was all black and white, right? And everything just moved on from there. It's just it just grew and grew until the 70s, The 70s was kind of a niche for, well, you said you grew up with Grandizer.
Yeah.
Do any of you remember renting a video titled Force 5?
No. I mean, the only two, like I said, I remember Grandizer and a couple of similar ones, but the big one was, because I came to Canada in 78.
Yeah.
And Gotcha Man, I found out many years later it was called Gotcha Man, but for me it was G-Force or Battle of the Planets.
Yes.
That's the one I remember the
Sandy
most.
Frank Productions,
Yeah.
Casey Kasem, right? Doing that. Force 5 was literally a compilation of mechas, right?
Okay.
There was Grandizer. There was
giant robots.
Right, giant robots. So they were showcasing 5. Hence Force 5. There was one of them wasn't really about giant robots, but still qualified for it. Space Cateers, hence Three Musketeers in Space. You got Star Avengers. You got Guy King, that robot with horns, if you remember.
I remember Guy King. I also remember Jesse Dart.
Jesse Dart as well.
That was a great one, yeah.
Right.
What about you? Do you remember anything from the 70s?
No, my anime phase started like late mid 90s maybe, you know.
Okay, so we'll catch up. We'll catch up for you. Yeah.
We'll catch up.
We'll get to you. Yeah.
We'll catch up.
I actually feel young. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No. And,
Shut the fuck up! We're gonna need another Josh.
oh no.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah. Grandizer, Jesse Dart. Yeah.
Yeah, Jesse Dart.
The early
yeah.
70s.
Space Cateers, and of course, you got some of the later ones like Star Blazers, Speed Racer. Speed Racer was actually more of a '60s thing, and then they kind of revamped it.
You can tell because he had the ascot, and nobody after like 1969 had an ascot.
That's right. That's right. And then the '80s was when we here started to kind of have an idea about what anime looked like, because unbeknownst to many, including myself, it was around the '80s that Japanese studios started to contract out their talent. If you remember growing up with '80s cartoons, you'd see what's a good example? Jason the Wheeled Warriors. You got the Orbots. You got what else? Brave Star.
Brave Star, I remember.
Right?
Yeah.
You got Brave Star. You got the Galaxy Rangers. And then you got Saber Rider, which is actually a different series in itself.
Okay.
But you get the drift. Like the '80s, and then they loaned out their talents to studios like Ruby Spears, Hanna-Barbera, right?
Yeah.
G.I. Joe was of course, Transformers G1. G.I. Joe was actually partly, it was split between American, Korean, and Japanese.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about it in the last episode.
Right? So the influence was already spreading there. And then sooner or later it becomes a pop culture icon. And then there's a few titles that get recognized and kind of stay with us, like Voltron.
Yes.
Right? Voltron, Defender of the Universe, the Lions, and then the Cars.
I remember the lines. I wanted all the lines.
Yeah.
One of them. I got the green one, and that was all I ever got.
Right. And it just grew from there. And then the '90s was kind of an experimental phase. They started to mix and match all the different types of genres. And funny you mentioned the Evangelion, because that was a mix of a whole bunch of genres. They tried to incorporate a bit of drama in there. Of course, you've got the mechs. You've got a military background / storyline. But the thing is, since it was one of the early works, it was kind of convoluted, as you know. The ending was kind of 50-50. It left you with a huge cliffhanger. And they actually came out with 2 follow-up features, follow-up movies, just to kind of clean off the edges. I forget which titles they were.
Well, for a TV show to and have you going, what the hell? And then the studio saying, hey, tell you what, you can fix all the loose ends with the movie. Yeah, I think I've heard of something like that before.
Yeah.
Confession time. I've only seen bits and pieces of it.
Yeah. No, but it's just that's okay. I mean, if people get started, that's how people get started. It's actually they get bits and pieces of it, right?
Like the old version of Sephai, he get a lot of information by proxy.
Yeah,
Pretty much.
the first Sephai, I mean, up until well, we can't talk about that.
But,
Yeah, I remember him telling us that he had friends who were into anime and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
he picked things up here and there. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, like I heard the term manga at one point, and I'm like, well, what's the difference between manga and anime?
Manga.
Manga. See, I couldn't even
is,
say it right.
Actually, manga was actually one of the pioneers for anime. The manga is kind of like it's a comic book per se.
Oh, okay.
It's a Japanese comic book, but unlike the conventional comic book that you read the manga from back to front.
Oh, okay.
Right? You read it from
That
back.
would explain it. I remember being at a comic shop here one day, and so I'm looking through the,
Yo.
it looks like the graphic novels, and I saw the Japanese, so I was like, okay, fine, and I opened it up, and I started reading from left to right, and I'm like, this is making no bloody sense. I just put it right back and walked away.
Right.
I didn't know nothing about anime. I still know very little.
Right.
That's why we have Joe.
My first brush with manga actually didn't come until the late 90s, early 2000s, when I came across a book called GTO, or Great Teacher Onizuka. He is basically a former Yakuza gang member who wants to go to the straight and narrow, starts teaching in a high school, and of course you get hijinks like, he's smoking and drinking in class, and he's coming, and then there was one thing where there was I think the infirmary wanted a stool sample, and they got a whole box.
Oh shit.
Yeah, literally.
Pardon the pun.
Gave him a whole box, and they opened it, and the flies started coming out, and it was like, oh shit, right? So
No pun intended.
yes,
Yeah.
no pun intended. And then,
This could go on for an hour, folks. Yes. Okay, so, oh shit, a box of shit. Got it. Go on, quick.
and then, but yeah, the difference is like you read it from right to left, and a lot of the stuff in the 60s and the 70s actually came from manga adaptations. They took it straight from the manga. Space Battleship Yamato was one such thing, right? And then you mentioned about Japanimation and anime, the earlier questions. It was also in the 80s when they started distributing the stuff wholesale to the North American market. And at that time, people were using the term Japanimation to kind of distinguish this from all the other works, like, say, Walt Disney.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
When in actuality, Walt Disney was actually one of the proponents or inspirations for early Japanese creators to come up with this style of manga, or anime, right?
Okay.
Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs in particular, a lot of earlier creators would actually cite that cartoon as their inspiration as to how the styles work. With Dopey and his big googly eyes, you got Bashful, and mostly the Seven Dwarfs and Snow White.
Yeah.
And then Japanimation, and then sooner or later everybody started. You know what? Since Japanimation at that time was becoming diverse, then they just decided to use a blanket term, use anime as a blanket term now to describe everything, because it was getting, a lot of...
It evolved enough that it didn't need the distinction between the North American and Japanese.
Right.
Okay.
And before that too, I mean, there was the TV series, and then there was the what they call it, OVAs, or original video animation. That just meant that anime feature in particular just went direct to video.
Gotcha.
Right? And now with the advent of the internet, you've got ONAs, original net animation. Same concept, but from the net, from the production company straight to the net, right?
Now, I know like a lot of anime fans, they're referred to as otakus.
Yes.
Why do they have that distinction of having a specific name kind of thing? Because I mean, like, here in North America, hey, do you like cartoons? Yeah. That's all you need.
Right.
Yeah. How come they have an actual expression, term for them?
Of otakus. Again, this is why the 80s was pretty big for anime, because that's when the term actually came to light.
Okay.
Otaku was kind of like a play with one's head. They called atama in Japanese,
Okay.
but instead they substituted with an O. And then, long story short, it just meant all you've got is anime in the brain,
Okay.
right? And that kind of became I guess a coin phrase, right? To distinguish.
So it's just simply a cartoon geek.
Yeah.
And it just
Yeah,
the
something
name's
like
not-
that.
Okay.
Something like that. It's kind of like how the Japanese people have their cliques in the cities. Like there's Lolitas who like to dress up as Lolitas.
Oh,
There's rockabillys, right? There's the biker gangs. There's the yakuza, right? They've got their own distinctive marks, right? The otaku was pretty much your. It was a little hard to distinguish because they looked like your everyday geek, but literally all they ever talk about, eat, sleep, breathe is anime, right?
Yeah. Well, when I would go to like Anime North or hang out with other otakus, I would kind of translate otaku in otaku.
I'd like to order a taco, please.
That's what I said. Someone's hungry.
Otakus as sort of a part of or interested in Japanese culture. So it would be trying to emulate a more Japanese lifestyle through anime. That's how I translated it.
That's the essence of it. Right? Eventually, I mean, like a fan from North America yourself, I mean, it's become commonplace nowadays, where you'd see somebody with dyed hair come on the subway, or somebody dressed in Lolita gear. They've got short skirts, leggings, that kind of thing. And to them, that's normal, and then to us, it's normal because we see them every day, right?
I went to Catholic high school, so.
No, that's a different kind of everyday.
Still makes you feel the same.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
But that's what
Right.
therapy's for.
Yeah, well, I will leave that up to you.
How many therapists are you through? Anyway, we'll be here for a while.
Yeah, a lot.
All I know is that one day I told my dad I'm going to go see a therapist, and his response was, "That's cool. When's he seeing his?" Thanks, Dad.
That's what dads are for.
Yeah, exactly. So, what's your favorite anime?
My favorite anime. Well, my favorite anime by far is. It came out a while back. It's called. It came out I think in the early 2000s. It's called When They Cry. It's a psychological thriller where there's this group of friends between 10 and 18 years old. They're just one group of kids going through life as usual, or so it seems. It so happens that they know that one of them, the youngest of them, is going to be killed one day. He's going to be murdered. So they kind of get stuck in this time loop, and they relive each day, or each week rather, as the anime suggests. They relive each week, just going through the motions, and no matter what they do, the outcome is the girl always dies. Whether they alter it with some way, shape, or form.
These tacos taste funny to you?
she related to Kenny?
Come on, Kenny.
You could say that.
Okay.
Because they could kind of say a variation of, oh my God, they killed Kenny right after each episode. But and then out of the blue, the twist of that anime is like one of them either does
Spoilers!
something crazy, spoilers, right? So one of them does something crazy, or one of them takes your place, and then it goes into a cliffhanger, and then that's it for the first season. And then the second, I think it went on for 3 seasons in total. I haven't finished the 3rd season. That's how far behind I am. That came out in the 2000s, but that's one of my favorites.
See, this is part of the reason why I fell in love with anime.
Right.
Is you could have such a great platform that allows you to do so much, whereas in as American cartoons, it's always a stigma that cartoons are for kids.
Yeah, I mean, like a lot of I grew up with a lot of cartoons and stuff like that, which explains a lot about my brain. But yeah, there's a sort of a family-friendly formula.
Exactly.
So
yeah.
you'll have cartoons that are made in a childish way, like Tiny Toons, or Freakazoid was just
Animaniacs.
on its own, but Animaniacs and Tiny Toons. It's always the outrageous, the bizarre, the wacky.
Right.
Or you get the cartoon like G.I. Joe, Transformers, good guy versus bad guy, and quite honestly, for me growing up, it's like you only had those 2 genres of, in essence, of types of cartoons. So
and they're very. It seems like a very taboo thing to play with anything more than that.
Yeah.
Like in anime, you have, if you need a character to do this certain thing, they can do this certain thing.
Yeah.
And I guess in essence, sometimes it can seem a little more detached if it's an unsavory action that this person's taking.
Yeah, because the only cartoon I remember ever seeing, in North America anyhow, that it ran at like 8 o'clock at night. It was a primetime cartoon.
Right.
It starred James Garner as the voice of God, and French Stewart as the voice of a guy named Bob, and unfortunately right now, whoever played the devil, his name's escaping me right now.
Sig.
Thank you. But it's called God, the Devil, and Bob. And basically God appears to this regular Joe Bob one day, and they start having a conversation kind of thing, and how it went from there. But that's the only time I ever really saw in North America any attempt of a cartoon to be more than just or let's kill the bad guys, let's stop the good guys, ha 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 ha.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's how a lot of anime started out in the States too. It was mashups of different series just so that everybody would get familiar with it, get used to the artwork. Robotech is a prime example.
I remember that was a very big long time ago.
Robotech was actually, if you think that's one whole series, but it's not. It's a combination of 3 whole series.
Oh, okay.
You got the base of it, Macross, and then you've got another full anime series called Southern Cross, and you've got another series called Genesis Climber, right? So those 3 combined, using stock footage, made up Robotech.
Josh, what's your favorite of all time?
I grew up in the 90s, and it was just like, it's all YTV stuff that I got into. Pokemon, Sailor Moon, Inuyasha.
Inuyasha.
I know. That's how they pronounced it.
And he's a washing what?
Each time.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard, kind of really pin down like my favorite of all time. It's just sort of anime in general. One of the more recent ones that I really enjoyed watching. I can't quite remember the name. It's like a.
You can't remember your favorite.
It was like high school, and then high school and very general for anime. I know. High School and Zombies. It was a really good one.
Oh! High School of the Dead.
Yes, High School of the Dead. It was a really good.
You can remember the High School show and Zombies, and you can't remember High School of the Dead.
Sorry, I'm distracted by the scripts. That's all.
Okay, fair enough.
It happens with everything, right?
But yeah, no, it was just one of those interesting things. I wouldn't really have thought about. Again, one of those things that you just wouldn't think about anime and zombies. Okay, zombies are popular, anime is popular, and they actually put it together really well.
That's another good thing too. Is anime goes with the times, right? I mean, high school that came when post-apocalyptic stuff started to become a big thing, and then became zombies, and then now there's this series called Attack on Titan, where it's basically
I've yet to get into that.
you know.
Sorry.
That's all right.
Well,
You know.
see, that's just it, because, I mean, not too long ago, my son and I were talking about, he's starting to get into different animes and whatnot. And in a recent getting together for a meeting with one of the Sephais, we started talking about anime and all that stuff, because we wanted to make an anime episode, and
Right.
Josh brought up a very interesting point, and maybe you can help with this as well.
Mm.
His attitude is, there's anime on Netflix, because I know Attack of the Titans is on Netflix.
Yes.
It's one of those I've been meaning to watch and all that stuff.
Right.
My son and I, he got me into Death Note. I was actually very much enjoying it. That, you know, even though I go see my son, hang out for the day, we watch a few episodes, I would go home and I would cheat and watch a few episodes at home as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
However, Josh had the experience of watching the Japanese version, not so much Americanized. Apparently, according to him, what was he called it? Atrocities?
Yeah, something along those lines of, you know, that you need that artist to go back in time to unwrite that.
To undo it. Yeah.
Like, what's your thoughts? Have you watched anything like original and, you know, like Netflix version plus the original version? Have you?
So the original anime of what he's talking about and the crap they put out on Netflix.
Oh, that. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say it's been bastardized. Voltron Legendary Defender, right?
Well, I don't know. He keeps calling them
Right.
bastards. So I'm
No,
thinking, like,
yeah, those damn bastards. No, well, to be honest, that was a homage, if you ask me. But you know, there were some elements that were kind of put out that I kind of missed from watching the original series, because I've got, you know, basically all of the episodes of Voltron uncut, subtitled. There's blood, there's gore, there's death. They cut out a lot of it.
damn, we gotta talk, dude.
Yeah, they cut out a lot of it.
I like Voltron, so it's like, you know, wait a minute, like stabby,
Oh yeah.
blah blah blah.
Well, if you look at it, I mean, the 5 pilots were basically prisoners in an intergalactic prison, and run by an intergalactic dictator whose royal guards like to eat the corpses of those that died in the gladiator battles.
That was so not in my 12-year-old version. No.
There you go. There you go.
No.
They actually showed a couple of shots of it, but they didn't expand on it.
Oh, okay.
But mind you, that sort of editing allowed it more of a foothold.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, North American market, it's like, you know, obviously it's like going to be a big thing.
Yeah.
I mean, especially like, you know, with Transformers and G.I. Joe and all, like how, you know, because I know, like, you know, Transformers started in Japan, and so the toy market exploded here as well.
And it was
So,
to make it all
You
marketable.
know, that's why you start bringing stuff like Voltron and other cartoons over here. But of course, cultures are very different in the attitudes. I mean, you can be watching a program in Britain, for example, like in London. You can watch a TV program, and a woman who's standing there topless, and it's not a big thing to them.
No, it's not.
You know, whereas here, you know, a topless woman on a regular show,
Get that off TV.
that's horrible. You get, you know, the phone calls. That's absolutely horrible. You can't have that kind of thing on. That's for cable TV, or
Yeah.
you know. So I mean, definitely, like, you know, the moral attitudes and all that stuff. And the Japanese people,
They're a bit more liberal about it. 'Cause
they're
they've got-
weird little fuckers. I'm sorry, but
Yeah, I know.
no offense, Japan, but I mean, I know for a fact, like, you guys have vending machines for a lot of stuff, and the fact that you can, like, go up to a vending machine and buy a pair of girls' panties that have been worn and then folded and put into cellophane, dude, man, like, that's
I know the shipping on those are horrible. You just
right. How much did you pay?
I don't remember, but we'll leave that for another episode, shall we?
Fair enough. All right.
All right.
So, okay, So, folks, here's the deal. We've heard a lot about the great history of anime from Joe, and they both chimed in with some great stuff about their favorites and all that stuff. We want to hear from you. What are some of your favorite episodes? What are some of your favorite shows on anime? Let us know in the on Twitter. Let us know on Facebook, and of course down there in the YouTube comments and all that stuff. And what we're going to do is, this is not the end. We're going to have another episode about anime in which the guys here are going to give us a bit of a lesson. If you've been thinking about it, like I said, I watched Death Note, and I've been thinking about Attack of the Titans. I did watch a bit of Full Metal Alchemist for a while. So just like everybody else, there's probably been shows you've been thinking, I'm wondering if I should get into that. These guys...
What, tentacles?
No.
Oh.
No, tentacles get into...
Oh, no.
I've seen enough internet to know where that's going. We want to hear from you guys. What the guys are going to tell us about is what you should be watching if you're going to get into anime. So until then, I'm Paul.
I'm Josh.
And I'm Joe.
And I lost. Hey everybody out there in Fandom Land. If you're having fun with the Gassed Up Geeks, follow us online. We're everywhere. We're on YouTube, we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, and we're on Instagram. Cheers!